What is going on, Only Playbook fans? We are back for another episode. NFL draft season is here. Last week we did quarterbacks. Show it. This week we are doing running backs. Now, I got to headline this by saying last week when we did the quarterbacks, the most important position in the NFL, I said that this is a weak class. Now, this week we transition over to running backs, which for the last couple of years have been getting shit on in the NFL, right? Just no value. They're too old. Don't pay them. Well, Shobit, I don't know if you figured this out as well, but this is a hella deep running back class. When we were doing top 5 rankings, it felt like I would put a guy in my top 5, and then the next guy I would watch, I'd be like, wait, this guy should be in my top 5. How do I get rid of this guy? And then I'd watch the next guy and I'd be like, wait, this guy probably should be in my top 5. So it just kept doing that to where I know we're doing top 5s, but I have like 11 guys written down that I'm like, I feel like I'm not doing justice to the NFL draft and to people that listen if I don't at least mention some of these names. How did you feel doing your research with the running backs?
Yeah, I found it very difficult to narrow it down to 5 people because there's just a lot of talent, and I can only imagine what it's going to be like going into the draft room for these teams where they're trying to decide, okay, we can't get our Ashton Jeanty, we can't get the number 2 guy. Maybe we wait till the 3rd and 4th round, and even in those rounds, you're looking at quality running backs that have potential to start, week 1 in the NFL. Especially in fantasy football as well. So, lots to be excited about. I found it difficult, but it's great. It's been a while since we've had a heavy running back draft class. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It kind of worked out for me because last year the Vikings needed a quarterback, so I was like, hell yeah, deep quarterback class. I get to study them all. This year the Vikings need a running back, so I've been extra giddy to be able to study this class. And like you said, you don't need a 1st round guy. You don't need a 2nd round guy. There's 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, day 3 running backs that should come in and be immediate starters. So it's pretty crazy how, again, year over year, things just change. And I think that's one reason why I am like something that does go on in my brain is where is Ashton Jeanty going to fall? Because he's the one guy that is a true 1st round running back, right? Like he should be drafted in the 1st round, but you see all these other running backs that are more than capable where you don't have to give up a 1st round capital on a running back position. It just makes me wonder, is he going to slide a little bit? And then is somebody going to be like, holy shit, Ashton Jeanty just fell into our lap. So that's kind of what I thought about it. The more and more I started liking more running backs is teams can continue to wait on this. So let's talk about our top 5, Shobit. Let's do this. I know you have a top 5. Do you have anybody that you looked at that did not make your top 5 that was just right outside your top 5?
There's a couple of people. Skattebo, I think it's like I forget his
Cam Skattebo.
Cam Skattebo. Yeah. So I was watching his highlights. The guy's like a truck, dude. The only thing I found difficult in terms of putting him in the top 5 is the fact that like he doesn't have that top line speed. But if he's a guy that can power and bulldoze over the next guy and get yards that way, just be a bruiser, I could see some potential for him in the NFL. I really liked what I saw from him, and I'm interested to see if that translates into the NFL level. Okay,
so Skattebo didn't make your top 5. Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that there's probably 3 people in your top 5 that are also going to be in my top 5. The top 3 most likely, unless, again, you're coming from left field on me here. I'm going to assume that 3 of our 5 possibly could be the same. So Skattebo is in my top 5. So knowing that Skattebo is not in your top 5, I have some guys that are right outside my top 5 who might be in your top 5. So one guy, my biggest sleeper this year, before we get into guys that are going to be important, I was watching a lot of random guys, and Virginia Tech running back, I don't know if you got a chance to watch him. His name is Bhayshul Tuten. It's actually Bhayshul. It goes Bhayshul. Okay. First name Bhayshul. Last name Tuten. Tuten. Virginia Tech running back. This guy is probably going to run the fastest 40 of any running back that tests at the combine. So they're projecting him to have some sub 4.4. So it's going to be in the 4.3s, possibly the fastest guy in the draft. Now, what's crazy about this guy is when he touches the football, every once in a while you watch a player and you're like, you don't need to see, you'd see like 3 clips of him and you're like, this guy has the capability to play on Sundays. It's just about consistency, right? When he makes an electric play, Shove it, I don't even think, yes, Ashton Jeanty makes hella insane plays, but outside of Ashton Jeanty, the top end plays of Bhayshul Tuten are like just as good as almost every other running back. So I'm just like, what the hell? This guy is somebody that's like ranked in people's like 15, 20, outside of top 20. He has the top end speed and he's an elite pass catcher. So the reason why I view him differently is we're in an NFL day and age where these type of players have so much value, specifically from a fantasy football perspective. He catches passes and he's fast as fuck. So like he does everything that we would want somebody to do in the NFL coming in a year one. I don't know if he's going to be a workhorse, but I think what we'll find is there's a lot of running backs here that are complementary pieces. And then there are some that are workhorses. And I think he is an elite speed complementary third down back that I'm coming in making immediate impact in day one. So nobody's talking about him, and he's like top 50. He's like top 15. I feel like I had to shout him out, man. I think he's going to be really fast, especially if he shows up at the combine and he tests as fast as everybody's expecting him to. That speed's not going to go unnoticed. So Bhayshul Tuten. I'm going with Bhayshul. It's not Bhayshul. I'm going with Bhayshul Tuten is his name, Virginia Tech. Check him out after this if you get a chance to, because I think you're going to like what you see.
I think that's a good point that you make with the combine situation. I know we talked about it, but once the combine happens, some of these guys are like in the 3 to, let's say, even 10 range, right? Like it's not surefire. Like after number 1 and number 2, I don't know if you can surely say that this guy has to be a 3 or more. So I'm interested to see how that combine is going to change everything with the 40s, some of the drills that they run. That's really going to elevate, or maybe not so much some of the other guys, but I'll have to take a look at that. I haven't really watched a film on him, but there's so many guys. There's so many guys to watch.
There's a lot of guys. And another guy I feel like I have to highlight before we get into the top 5. I don't know if you had a chance to watch Kansas running back Devin Neal, 5'11", 215 pounds. Dude, this guy has some elite level footwork. His like the way he shuffles at the line, waiting for patience to wait for the holes. It's feels like somebody who's like 25 years old that's already seen the NFL for like 5 years, right? He runs with such grace and patience. Like, again, something that I gravitate towards is players that make it look like the game is moving slow. And again, another guy where it feels like he's just shuffling. He's so patient. He's not like running to the hole as fast as he can. He's waiting to see what things create. And he's such a good pass catcher outside of the out of the backfield. So again, what I found is there's a lot of good running backs that catch passes out of the backfield this year, and it's making it really hard to evaluate those guys as sole like third down pass catching running backs, or if they do in fact have that 3-down capability. And I do think Devin Neal has the 3-down capability. Again, he's a low center of gravity guy, 5'11", but he's 215. So he's built like a bulldozer as well, similar to Skattebo, right? 5'11", 215. I think they're built the exact same. And again, it's just these guys that are low center of gravity, they're harder to take down. Their contact balance is so nice. So, you can hit them this way and they just shrug this way. You hit them this way, they shrug this way. So it's just, it was a really treat to watch Devin Neal's tape. And I think he's going to be very, very, important in the NFL, and I think in fantasy football in year one. So Devin Neal out of Kansas doesn't make my top 5, but he's another guy that I feel remiss if I didn't highlight him. Now, 2 guys I know we're both going to talk about. I'm sure, but the Ohio State running backs. Do you have either of those guys in your top 5?
Yes, I have both of them in my top 5. Both okay. Quinshon Judkins and Treveyon Henderson are both in my top 5 list.
Okay, where do you have them?
Okay, so I have number 5 is going to be Quinshon Judkins, and then number 3 for me is Treveyon Henderson.
Okay, so I have Quinshon Judkins as my number 7 running back, and then I have Treveyon Henderson as my number 6 running back. So neither of them actually make my top 5. So I'm going to let you talk about Treveyon Henderson because he's number 3 for you.
Yeah, I think Treveyon Henderson is, he didn't get a lot of credit in terms of being that shared back role in Ohio State. Him and Judkins were sharing basically responsibilities there, so we didn't see his full potential. But in terms of explosiveness, getting to that next layer, the efficiency that he had with 7 yards per carry, I think that was really nice. And I think his game will translate into the NFL level. 5'10", 208 pounds, has that ability to get that home run at any given time with his speed and his burst. And, you're seeing a kind of this 2 running back situation where we saw in the Detroit Lions with the Gibbs and Montgomery. Henderson is that Gibbs type of player that can come into those passing downs, doesn't turn the ball over, a good, smart player. And on top of that, when it comes to those passing downs, he's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the entire nation, right? So athleticism and the skill, combine that together, I think this guy is going to be, for me, he's the third best running back in this draft for me.
Yeah, and I think I like the Lions comparison because that's kind of how Judkins and Treveyon Henderson complement each other. Is because Judkins is massive; he's like 6 foot 220, and then you have Henderson who's like 5'10", and he's the speed guy, right? So they do a good job of complementing each other in that way. I do actually like Henderson better than Judkins as well. I actually went back because before this season, a lot of people had Judkins coming out going pro last year and really highly regarded. So I was like, did he have a better 2023 than he had a better than a 2024? So I went back and I watched this 2023 tape, and 2023 Judkins looks like he could have been like RB3 this year. Now 2024 Judkins looks a little bit different. Now I don't know if that's because he didn't feel as comfortable sharing time. Maybe Henderson started gaining some momentum and you lose confidence that way, but he didn't seem like the same confident runner that he was in all of his 2023 tapes. So that was a little bit, I don't know, just worrisome to me, but they both look like they have what it takes to be NFL running backs. I felt like we're talking about them as, half pieces to a full puzzle. And I feel like the guys that I have in my top 5 are all true. Like, I can carry the load on my own guys. So that's why those guys are outside my top 5. I do think out of those two, Judkins has the ability to be a full 3-down back because he has the size for it. But it's just about that breakaway speed that he doesn't have that Henderson does have. So you mentioned you have Judkins 5. Yes. I'm gonna guess you have Kaleb Johnson at number 4. Right. I'm gonna guess you have Treveyon Henderson at 3. Yeah. And I'm assuming 2 is Omarion Hampton and 1 is Ashton Jeanty, right?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, that's fairly easy to guess based on the numbers you've already given me. So for me, number 5, I have Cam Skattebo out of Arizona State. Number 4, I have Dylan Sampson, running back out of Tennessee. Ooh, number 3, nice. Kaleb Johnson from Iowa. Number 2, Omarion Hampton. And number 1, Ashton Jeanty. So let's talk about Cam Skattebo real quick. You mentioned Cam Skattebo. There is so much to like with this guy. Like he is so hard to bring down. His contact balance is insane. He catches everything. He's really, really good at just sitting in zones, coming out of the backfield and catching passes. He's also really, really patient as a runner. So while he doesn't have that speed, that top end speed that you'd like for somebody in the NFL, he waits for holes to break. He waits for holes to open up, and he's really patient in taking what you can get. And the best thing about him, Shovit, is he falls forward every time he gets tackled. So he's like a bowling ball in that way that, like you said, if you don't have breakaway speed to get 10, 12, every time he's getting tackled, he's falling forward. So he's never getting 1 or -1. He's always getting like 3, 5, 7. So I just think that build, it's not necessarily that he's stronger than college football players only. I just think this man is built like a brick. And I think he's going to come into the NFL and have that same ability to fall forward, same ability to have that vision, same ability to gracefully catch passes out of the backfield. And I think he also does a great job using his low center of gravity to block. But what I did notice with him is because he's built like a bowling ball, I feel like most of his blocking reps, he's trying to like hit stick the guy. Like he won't sit and just like hold his block. Guy's coming, he's running at him and trying to hit him. And in the NFL, one guy could make one quick move, and like Skattebo's not quick enough to maneuver that. So that could be a problem for him, is he lunges when he blocks. But God, there was a stat, and granted he played for Arizona State, so they don't have a lot of talent. Wins above replacement, right? WAR, which means how much does your overall play contribute to your team's wins relative to the rest of the field. I think Cam Skattebo had a wins above replacement higher than Ashton Jeanty. So it just goes to show how valuable he was to that program and to that team. And again, it's not like it's a big school. Arizona State's not the best football program, but there's a reason somebody who is built like he is, doesn't even look like he should be a football player, is not very fast, is making waves, is because he does everything else. So I really, really like what I see from Cam Skattebo. I just think we have to overlook the fact that he doesn't have breakaway speed, because everything else he does is very, very NFL Sunday ready. So that's why I had him in my top 5, because I do think he could be a 3-down back, because he can catch passes, because he's able and he's willing to block, and because he's a patient runner. So I don't think he lacks anything to not be a true workhorse in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean the number 1 guy that had the most tackles forced per attempt, or so most tackles forced per attempt.
Missed tackles
forced per attempt was Ashton Jeanty with 0.4. Number 2 was Cam Skattebo, right? So this guy is a freaking truck, right? And so I think, again, this is like where, I saw the 40 from like what was the registered online, and I don't know how valid it is, but it said 4.62, right? So this is a guy where he goes in the combine and that number is closer to like 4.55.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude. Sub 4. If Skattebo runs a sub 4.6, this guy will be drafted in the second round easily.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's what it comes down to. It's you're right. Like that's his speed. Can that translate into the NFL level, or is he just a glorified fullback, or a tight end, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
what are we getting from this guy?
Hayden Hillis looking ass, like
Yeah.
yeah. No, for sure. It's easy to be skeptical because this type of player doesn't always show success in the NFL at the NFL level, especially when you're drafting, you're grading out prospects. You're always trying to bank on people who haven't reached the surface of their potential. To me, Skattebo looks like he's like a full form potential of what he's going to be, but I don't think that is going to fall off at the NFL level because I just think he plays with a certain aggression, vigor that you really can't slow the man down. So I really like him a lot. That's why he's sniffed my top 5. Talk to me about Kaleb Johnson. He was number 4 for you. He's number 3 for me. So we see him pretty similarly.
Yeah, Kaleb Johnson, I think this guy is a 3-down running back for sure. I think he's very patient but explosive at the same time. He can get to the outsides, also north and south. Like he kind of has it all, but for the only thing about him was like, is it the offensive line that's kind of like Iowa had a really good offensive line, right? So there was that part of it. But as far as productivity, being able to get 14 touchdowns, over 1,000 yards, I think he's got it all. Athleticism, that patience is what you want to see in a running back. So, you talk about the Vikings getting a running back. I'm looking at this guy and thinking, okay, maybe the Steelers, or a team like the Browns could be a team that could go out and get a running back like that. A big low body, can truck people, breaking tackles ability as well. So lots to like from Kaleb Johnson.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I noticed when I watched him is he glides. He doesn't run. His feet don't look like they're moving, so it's just so graceful to watch him play football. It reminds me of Arian Foster. Now, his build reminds me more of David Johnson, but the way he runs reminds me of Arian Foster. Like you said, he's got this perfect size speed. He's 6 foot 220, right? So he's not too slow and he's not small. He's big. So he's got just a perfect build of what you want. And at the same time, he's fast enough. I think he's going to probably run like a 4.5 would be my guess. If he's sub 4.5, he could be another guy that goes like in the top 40. So I think he's got everything. I just think, again, we're in a pretty deep running back class where most other running back classes, you could argue Kaleb Johnson could be a top 1 or top 2 running back in the class. I just think when you're stacking it up to the guys above him, he does everything they do, but I feel like they just do it a little bit better than he does, and they just add a little bit more nuance to their game. So Kaleb Johnson for me was number 3, number 4 for you. But I think, again, true 3-down running back. He's got the vision, he's patient, and the size, man. The size mix, the combination of his size and his speed, which won't be slow at all, is really, really hard not to pass up on. So I think at the end of the day, for me, all of those guys have the ability to be immediate impact players in the NFL. Kaleb Johnson has the ability to come into a running back room and be the number 1 running back from day one. So that's why I have him there. Now, Dylan Sampson, real quickly, I'll touch on him. You didn't have him in your top 5. Tennessee running back, 5'11", 190 yards, track star in high school. So another really, really fast running back, probably going to run in the 4.3s. For me, the best thing I liked about Dylan Johnson is his lateral quickness. He does a really good job of, if he's trying to find a hole and it immediately closes, his jump cut to the outside, he's so quick that he's able to like find 3 different layers to a single running play. Like he'll run in, it won't be there, he'll jump cut to the outside. There'll be somebody that closes that gap and he'll jump cut again, and he's got the lateral speed to run all the way to the outside. I feel like he's such a Miami Dolphins type running back that he's got that speed to break away on the edge and break contain, and I think he's like a 1 hole away from hitting a home run. I thought Dylan Sampson looked so similar. Like the way he played looked so similar to Treveyon Henderson. I just felt like everything that Treveyon Henderson did, Dylan Sampson, for me, just did it a little bit better. And I don't know if it's just because when you're wearing an Ohio State jersey, you expect to like jump off the screen. I expect when I'm watching Ohio State players to be like, wow, that guy went to Ohio State, so he's probably going to do some crazy shit, right? But I didn't get that. But when I watched Dylan Sampson, I was like, damn, like the way he's breaking contain on the outside feels like Sunday fast, not just Saturday fast, So that's what I really liked about Dylan Sampson. He just screams Miami Dolphins, screams zone running scheme. I think he's going to be like so good for that. And that's why I have him in my top 5. He's actually my 3rd best running back this year.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, the speed, that's the biggest thing, right? Explosiveness. I did see the comparison of Treveyon Henderson and Sampson. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Well, I think
again, time will tell.
Time will tell. The combine will tell, and then they'll all come up in their respective order.
Yeah. So Omarion Hampton, Shovit, I'm assuming he's number 2 on your list. He is also number 2 on my list. I think if Ashton Jeanty wasn't in this class, Omarion Hampton would probably be like the consensus number 1 running back. What did you see, dislike about this player?
Yeah, I think he's got it all. 3 down back, built like an NFL running back, has the ability to catch the ball as well. He can be a threat in the passing game, and his incredible burst, man. He's just kind of explosive into getting into those those holes and getting to that second layer of the defense. I really liked what I saw from his ability, just a big guy that's able to run fast, and that's really what you want in a running back.
Yeah, so when I watched him play, he reminded me a lot of Matt Forte. He's again 4.4 speed, probably, right? He's gonna test well. I have no doubt that he's gonna test well. I don't think he's gonna be a 4.3 guy. He'll probably be 4.4, but he's got great speed. But the good thing about his speed is, you know how you like some guys to be really patient, and then you like some guys to be really decisive, because sometimes the guys who try to be patient, but it's not like part of their innate ability, they'll usually be too late to see a hole, right? And then that's when they run into their own offensive lineman's back or something. What I like about Omarion Hampton is I didn't get to see a ton of patient runs from him, and I don't know if that's because of the way their running scheme is, but I felt like when he saw a hole, he was attacking so downhill. It was like, I see the hole, I'm getting through it. So it's just so decisive. It's a guy that you're probably not going to get a lot of negative plays from, because he's such a downhill runner. He's always trying to make sure that he goes north and south and doesn't go east or west. So I really like that about him. Again, speed, catching ability. A lot of these guys can do it all. So it just feels like I'm regurgitating the same shit, but Hampton can catch passes out of the backfield. He's 6 foot 220, and he's going to run like a sub 4.5. So he's fast, strong, can catch out of the backfield. It's just another really, really good running back that, again, if we didn't have a generational Ashton Jeanty, people would be like, oh, could Omarion Hampton go to go in the 20s or something in the first round? Probably. Could a team reach for him in the teens? Probably. But right now that's being talked about with Jeanty, obviously, rightfully so. So I think that's where Omarion Hampton gets his biggest knock, is he happens to be in a draft class with somebody who's constantly getting compared to Barry Sanders. And so that's unfortunate to him. But I really, really liked him. I think he's going to be an immediate impact player wherever he goes. I saw somebody compare him to Rashard Mendenhall. I don't know how I felt about that comparison, but I felt like that, fast, decisive, explosive. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So I could see it. All right. So the cream of the crop, the number 1 player, he could arguably be the best player in the NFL draft. Ashton Jeanty, Shovit. I mean, what is not to like?
Dude, there's everything to like about this guy. He's got the speed, he's got the vision, he can break tackles. He's got the accolades, right? He's, the most rushing yards since Barry Sanders. We talked about Barry Sanders earlier. This is a guy that is just a pro level player, all pro level player, that when he gets the ball, he's going to command the attempts, 25 attempts a game potentially, and he's going to do something with it, right? So he's a guy that I think any team that's looking for a running back, it's tough to kind of decide, whether you want to get the other positional players, but if you get this running back, you're getting the cream of the crop and a generational talent with Ashton Jeanty.
I think what's going to happen in the draft is, again, teams are going to struggle about opportunity cost, because we're talking about how deep the class is, but Jeanty is a generational talent. So I think what's going to end up happening is he's going to fall into the lap of a team who did not expect him to be there. And then at the same time, they're like, well, we have so-and-so and he's all right, but why would we pass up the opportunity to get somebody like that? And it just reminds me of Adrian Peterson in 2007. Vikings had the 7th overall pick. They were coming off a year where Chester Taylor ran for 1,000 yards. So they had no need for a running back. They were like, we're fine. We'll be okay. Peterson, who was supposed to go 1 or 2, fell to the 7th spot, and Vikings were like, we cannot pass up this generational talent. That's what happened. So that's what I see happening here, simply because teams are going to be like, could we take Jeanty in the 1st, or could we take Hampton early in the 2nd? Could we take Jeanty in the 1st, or could we take Kaleb Johnson in late in the 2nd, early 3rd, right? Sampson, Skattebo. We already talked about all these guys. So I think that's going to be the biggest dilemma that teams are going to face. But you talked about it, Shovit. This word gets thrown around a lot nowadays, more so than it needs to. But Jeanty is that. He's generational. He is absolutely generational. Contact balance. I think the first thing you'll notice if you watch any of his highlights, anything you can find on Jeanty, is the guy bounces off everything. I don't know how, because he's 5'9". He's tiny. He's 5'9", but he is stocky, 215, right? So he's built like a brick, but he's fast. He runs in the 4.4s, and I think it's the 5'9", again, low center of gravity, but guys are hitting him and he is just bouncing. You're hitting him on his thigh and he's just bouncing. You're hitting him on his shin and he's just bouncing this way. I'm like, how? It's almost like he's made like a rubber, like a elasticity man, like where he's getting hit this way and he just like bounces right off of it. It's the craziest thing. And it's Boise State, so they play a lot of not great teams, but now that they're in a better conference, they actually do have great teams. They played Oregon, who was like the top team in the country for most of the year, and Jeanty ran for almost 200 yards against this team. So if anybody wants to say he played for Boise State and, wait till you see some real competition, I don't think that's going to matter. I do not think that's going to matter. Again, I think that the comp that you see thrown around a lot, and I feel like this guy gets comped to a lot of players in draft season, unrightfully so, is Alvin Kamara. And Alvin Kamara, to me, is very, very similar to Jeanty, but man, I feel like we're doing a disservice to Ashton Jeanty comparing him to Alvin Kamara. I know, that sounds crazy. But when I watch Jeanty, I don't get shades of anybody else. I just get shades of insane excellence. Like, I'm not like, oh, he kind of reminds me of this guy. He doesn't. He's just so unique. I just feel like he's going to be the first Ashton Jeanty, and in the next 4 years, we're going to be like, oh, this guy kind of looks like Jeanty from 3 years ago, remember? So I feel like he's going to make a name for himself. I know Kamara gets thrown out a lot, and the contact balance mixed with the catching, all of that makes sense, but I just think Jeanty has even more layers to his game that Kamara coming out specifically did not. Maybe he got it afterwards because he's a stud now, but it's insane, Shovet. I mean, you look at the numbers this guy threw up, and they're just like video game unrealistic. I mean, 151 missed tackles forced this past season, right? 151. What does that number mean to you? It's arbitrary or nothing, right? But when you put it in a context that he had 49 more than the second best guy, he had almost 50 more missed tackles forced. That's insane. That Incredible. Is just insane. And that's their whole offense. So it's not like the third game of the season, teams aren't putting 9 people in the box knowing we have to stop Jeanty because Boise State doesn't throw the football, right? And even with all that, this guy is just constantly producing, man. And what I love best about him is you've probably seen it, the stance in the backfield where he's just standing super upright. He looks like Michael Myers, like he's ready to kill. Like, how guys are hunched over, right? They're ready to like momentum. The guy just like standing there. He's like standing super upright. Doesn't even look like he's ready to run. And then he gets the ball and all hell breaks loose. So I think that is a mindset thing where he just, has so much patience, has so much belief in himself that he doesn't need to let the game get too fast. He's so relaxed back there. Man, it's a treat to watch him run the football. I don't know, man. I don't know where he stacks in the Bijans and Gibbs, because Bijan was a pretty flawless prospect. Gibbs wasn't as flawless, and I know Gibbs is great now, but we're talking from a prospect level. Bijan was pretty flawless, but I think Jeanty's a better prospect than even Bijan Robinson. So, God, I mean, first round. If he goes to a team that even gives him somewhat of a fantasy potential, show of it, this guy's gonna get drafted in the first round next year in fantasy football.
Yeah, no, I mean, it all depends on where he goes, but this guy's in a whole tier of his own. I would say Omarion Hampton, Treveyon Henderson, and Kaleb Johnson are all in tier maybe 2, where this guy is 1, and then some of the guys we talked about later, like 3 or more from there. But yeah, man, like I said, generational talent. So let's see where he goes, and hopefully he drops, because people are like, running back position, I don't know, we can, it's replaceable. Anyone can come in, and then he comes to the Steelers, and then I will just, I don't know what I would do.
What pick did the Steelers have in the first round this year?
I think that I actually don't know. 21st, I believe.
Okay. So there's a chance. There's definitely a chance that he could fall to the 21st pick. But if he falls to 21, show it. Are you going to be like, we have to take Jeanty? Or are you going to be like, man, we could really, really use another receiver, or man, we could really use somebody on the defensive line or offensive line?
That's a great segue for next week, because we're going to be talking about tight ends and receivers, and I'll figure out if there's value. I've heard that tight ends there's a lot of tight ends, and there's a lot of edge rushers, defensive lines, and we could use some defensive line help. Cam Hayward's kind of getting older as well, but this guy is that good that, given the fact that Najee Harris is getting, he might not get signed, and Jaylen Warren. We don't know the future with the 2 running backs that we have. I think getting one of these stars running backs, if not Jeanty, Henderson or whoever, I think it has anyone with the top 5 potential. has a place in the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think anybody is going to be ecstatic to get Jeanty, and if you pass on Jeanty, there's so many other guys you can still get. So it's an awesome running back class. I'm excited to see what these guys do. Mainly, I'm excited to see where they get drafted, so then we can start projecting them from a fantasy football perspective.
Yeah.
Who's going to actually have first round potential, second round? Who's going to actually be vying for a starting spot? So that's all going to be really exciting. But it's nice to see a nice wave of new young running back talent coming into the NFL and inject that into my veins, because Saquon and Henry and all of them and Gibbs and all of them taught us that we cannot forget the running back position. It is still just as important. So that is all we have. All the good running backs. I know there's guys that I didn't even mention I have on my list, but I promise maybe I'll throw like a TikTok up or a one-off episode where I talk about some of the other running backs. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you're watching, hit the like, hit the subscribe. It helps spread the word. Socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Again, hit the like, hit the subscribe. I am Sweetcard. That is my Twitter. That's Shovit. That's his Twitter. We're the only playbook. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a fantastic week.